live.
We're live to the world.
We're live to the world. So well, we're live to us anyway, because I don't think we've got many viewers yet. But that
They'll
doesn't
be
matter.
coming in. That people be, downing their tea to come and see this.
Do you have your tea to hand, darling? Because
I've got my tea ready to hand and my biscuits.
Oh, what have you got? What have you got?
Chocolate digestives. They're the only biscuits. I do like custard cream.
Really?
And I do like a fig roll, but yeah, I've got a big cup of tea.
I have. Just look at this. Hang on, let me just get the right way around. Just
is that frosting? Have you got dirty frosting on that?
I've got lots of buttercream plus chocolate plus hundreds of thousands. It's disgraceful, isn't it? I mean, I'm
it's not disgraceful. We should be enjoying ourselves on this.
I'm going to eat it now while we're chatting before we look at the cards, because I don't want sticky fingers on the cards.
You don't want sticky fingers all on that one. No, you don't. Oh, Gerald's here. I can see he's popped in.
Hello, darling.
Hi, darling.
Let me just go into. Oh, there we go. Yes, Gerald. Darling, you're drinking your iced coffee, but we're not as posh as that. We've got tea. I've got rainbow.
Can I be honest? I don't like iced coffee.
Do you not?
No. In fact, when I'm really thirsty and really hot, I like a cup of tea to cool me down.
You're so English.
People have said this before. This before. Yeah. No, there's something about a cup of tea, isn't there?
Oh, it's Mickey. Hello, darling.
Hi, Mickey.
So, I'm all the way here. Oh, and you're on your lunch break.
Oh. I hope you're having a good day.
Oh, well, we do hope you're having a good day, darling, and just thanks for popping in, and it's just lovely to see you. And Elemental Artimancy is here. Yes, darling, your comments are showing up. So, again, it's lovely to see you. So, we don't feel so
Chris,
alone.
how are you? I hope you're doing okay. Lovely, Chris. There.
It's lovely. So,
Gerald's asking, do I like coffee?
What is it? Are we talking hot coffee?
Do you like coffee? He said.
Oh, I like coffee. I do, but I must admit, I will drink either. But I'm an Earl Grey boy.
Me too. I love an Earl Grey.
I have the only way I'm going to get through this is because I do actually have the full pot of Earl Grey. So there's 3 cups worth in here. So that would basically. So that
we might need to take a toilet break halfway through then.
Well, it's just going to keep me completely like wound up on caffeine.
Are you a bit of a snob when it comes to buying the tea? As in, do you have to have a special brand?
Oh God, no! Earl Grey oldie tea bags, love. Best Earl Grey out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Now, Chris loves. Hang on, Chris loves. Where are we? Oh, now yes, yeah. I could go for that. White coffee
milk
with coconut
milk. I can say, I think because this is your first time tonight, Chris, you're doing the flipping up of comments very well.
Just not bad, is it?
We've only got 3 people in chat at the moment. You wait.
just so that you're warned, I am a live stream StreamYard virgin. It's the first time I've been in control.
But he's done better than most of us, because I know there's been times when Gerald and I and other people have gone live where we've forgot to press the button. At least you did the countdown and you went go live. I mean,
yeah, because that was you were sort of in the room pre-broadcast saying, "Just hit the countdown. You've only got a minute."
I wasn't quite that snappy.
you were polite, darling.
Polite.
So
lovely.
We're going to talk some more cards, aren't we?
Well, why not?
Yeah. So I promise not to get buttercream or hundreds and thousands, or I'm just going to have another mouthful of this before we.
You get your mouth around that, yeah.
So,
you don't want it to be going off, or
no.
At it. I'm personally a bit weird about eating live on YouTube.
That's fine.
I'm not sure how I feel about it, and I tend to eat like that if I do.
This is Mark's birthday cake, so I'm making the exception. But
oh, fabulous! The best cake ever.
If you want to shield yourself. Oh, Fran's in. Hi, Fran.
Oh, hello, Fran.
And Aspasia Rising as well.
That's Beth. Hi, Beth.
Oh, hi. Do you know we're doing nicely?
We're doing nicely.
Yes, we are.
Lovely for your first live
for my virginal live transmission on this channel. So I'm just going to take my fleece off because it's getting warmer.
It does get warm.
What you brought with you?
What, cards wise?
Yeah.
Well, I have bought some oldies, and I mean, for me, they are oldies but reliable. They're my oldie and goodie ones. I bought, firstly, I've all got a story, actually, these as they would do with me. The first one, I've lost the box. There it is. The first one is my soul deck, which is the Sacred Rose.
Oh, wonderful.
I'll be talking about that later on, but this is my absolute. It hardly ever gets an airing because it's got its own special box with a lock to it, and it's only for my use and very special occasions, for things like New Year and births, marriages, deaths, that kind of thing. So, but I got it out for now, and it was a joy just to look through it this afternoon.
That is a deck. I'm really pleased you brought that one because it's a deck I don't have, and yet it's one that it had gone out of print before I could get hold of it, and it's one that seems to have really shaped and influenced so many people that I know in the tarot world. Just to interrupt, I love Fran, but I love her even more now because she's actually just declared that basically I've given her license to eat chocolate cake.
I think you got license to do anything during this life within reason.
Yeah. So
Chris allows it to happen.
Not that I'm dissipated in any way, shape, or form, darlings.
Hashtag Chris made me do it.
Should we talk some cards?
Just
before I drop myself in it anyway.
Yeah. So that's one of them. We'll get on to in a minute. The other bit is I've got the Norse tarot.
Oh wow!
The Clive Barrett one. I've got the book, obviously not the tarot deck. Yeah. Yes, I've got those. What have I done with them? Oh, they're in a pouch. They're in a pouch here. I have them. A friend of mine, Kelly, makes these tarot pouches and sells them on Etsy, and does a fantastic job. And I always keep my Norse tarot in this pouch. So if you can see
that is actually so gorgeous. I think we're going to have to put a link once this is finished. We'll put a link to.
Yes. We haven't got any moderators, have we, for our first live? But we will have moderators, and they will be able to do that. So that's that one. And then I've got my deck that I've been trying to pronounce all afternoon.
Oh well, we've both.
You have this one as well. It's the Robert Lichodziejewski. Hang on, got it wrong. Lichodziejewski.
I'll put it in the description, darling, because I can't pronounce it either.
Peter's Polish, and that's how he's written it out phonetically for me today. Okay, and I still can't do that. Still can't say it properly. But it's rude, isn't it? Not kind of being able to say it properly. So you have to give it a go, don't you?
Yeah. So
those are my three decks. What about you?
I have brought. I've got a couple of interesting ones. I'm going to actually cover my favorite modern deck. I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a real Waite Smith boy, but this is my very, very favorite modern deck. So I brought this. This is the Lo Scarabeo Mystical Tarot. This is by Giuliano Costa. So have a look at that. I've got one that was really influential for me when I was in my 30s. Because I had a period away from tarot, and when I
a couple of years ago, you mean?
It's literally 1 or 2 years ago, love. It's not very long. But this is the Sherman tarot. I love Juliet Sharman Burke as an author. She's one of my favorite tarot authors because I think she's really, really approachable. So this deck. It really kind of, I'd gone through a dry period with tarot, and this really fired my interest back up again. So I want to have a look at that.
That's interesting you say that, because the decks I've got have done that to me as well.
Yeah, this is the key, isn't it? I think it's nice. We're going to be talking about decks that have really fired us up or sort of enhanced our journey in some way. So I've also I've brought this Llewellyn's Magical Tarot because I thought you'd be interested in that.
I haven't seen that one. So that'd be nice to Get your pens and pads out, people, for writing
Oh,
ISBN numbers down.
You've
I
not
seen
seen
that
that
one.
one at all.
No.
Oh wow! Oh, you're in for a lovely surprise with that.
Well, can't wait.
And I've got a special curiosity, which is this, which I'm not going to say anything about until later. But there's only one of these, and there will only ever be one of these. So I will.
And that artwork looks a bit familiar.
It looks a bit familiar. So yeah. So there we go. So why don't you? But go on, pick one. Get the ball rolling. Pick one.
Well, shall I start with my sacred rose?
Yes, please.
Going to move a few bits. So I'm sure we've talked about this in a live, but how our journeys in tarot were quite similar, kind of starting off and stuff like that.
Just do us a recap about where you started off, because I think
I came across the Alfred Douglas book with the illustrations, the Sheridan Douglas, at school when I was about 14 or 15. Instantly ignited my interest in the cards and stuff. And of course, back then, because it was 1984, 83, something like that, there were hardly any decks around, and you certainly couldn't just buy them. There wasn't no internet, nothing like that at all. And so I stumbled into W.H. Smith's to look for tarot cards, and they had, and all I can remember is seeing the J.J. Swiss.
Yes.
There. I have a confession to make.
What?
I stole.
You've what? You stole
it.
Darling, in the words of one of my favourite films, have you ever seen The History Boys?
Yes.
Remember the games teacher? Because basically, when you really wanted to put someone down very seriously, he'd go all stern and he'd say, "Lad, you've let yourself down, you've let school down, and you've let God down."
I just remembered. I remember that. Yes, I did. Let's admit. Oh my God, can I be done by W.H. Smith for that?
Darling, just
we'll take the video down.
Gerald's just asked, can you show the box of
the Sacred Rose? So that bit there, that's the back of it, and that's the front.
And Mickey's seen The History Boys. Yeah.
Well, hasten to add, is actually, I think I did, but then I also, because I brought the cards home, and of course it meant absolutely nothing. It was a Marseille style, whatever, nothing to do with what I've been learning. So the cards kind of hung around, and I hid them away from my family because I thought my parents would think I'm a witch or something. And I don't know what happened to them. They disappeared. I might have even, and I'd like to say this as a get-out clause, taken them back and put them back on the shelf. I don't know. But they just disappeared, and I don't no idea where they went. But it kind of, then a few years on, I kind of still thinking about it. And I went to do you remember Prediction magazine?
Yes.
It was kind of when it was A5 size. And I used to get it when I was about 17 or 18 at college, when I had dark dyed hair and was a bit gothic. And kind of constantly smoking and covering yourself in patchouli oil.
I'll send you the photos. They're very embarrassing, because I went goth. I had like sort of, I mean, you can see how pale I am. I dyed my hair black and had it all sprayed. It wasn't a good look.
Yeah.
It really wasn't.
Well, we found in, I think it was Croydon.
Yeah.
Classy place to have a psychic fair, and I mean, my friends all jumped on a train one Sunday, went up to the psychic fair in Croydon, in their village hall area, whatever it was, and that's where I saw this deck, and it kind of and that's where I saw the Sacred Rose, and it's still got the price on it. It was £9.15.
Look at that.
It's probably what you get it for on eBay these days. But the moment I saw it, because this was the first time I'd seen a load of cards and stuff you could look through, and I ummed and ahed about this deck, because £9.15 back in 1980 something or other was still a lot of money. Exactly.
I mean, you were saying about the one JJ. This is not my original copy. I mean, that's something else we have in common. We both lost our original decks. There's a story behind mine, which I'll tell at some stage. But I can remember paying in 1980, I think it was 80 or 81, $7.99 for one of these, which back in the 80s was a huge amount. And I can remember my because the second deck I got was a blue box rider weight, but that was £11, and it seemed like the earth.
Well, that was like a whole. Well, just to put it in context, I did a paper round and I got paid £5 for 6 mornings delivery.
Yeah,
a week. So it was a lot of money.
Spacia Rising has just said strange tales from our past.
Well, this is the stuff of legends, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And elemental cartomancy, I also no longer have.
It's weird. A lot of people always just lose their first, and it doesn't. I don't remember losing it. I don't remember chucking it away. I don't remember giving it to anyone. Yeah. It just went into the ether.
Well, my first decks, one of these, a blue box rider weight and a Fergus Hall Tower of the Witches. I have identical copies because it was one of the things that I was so determined to do, was to troll eBay and find the exact editions that I had. But of course, when I was 18, I went through a very misguided religious conversion, got involved with an evangelical church, and they tore my cards up in front of me. And it's something that when I kind of walked away from the church in later years, and when I reconnected with the tarot, the anger still boils in me when I think of the loss of those decks. And that's why this actually means so much to me, because I trolled eBay for this in the, as soon as I got a computer, along with the other 2 decks. This is identical to what I had. Is it a tuck box or a? It's one of these.
Two-parter.
Yeah. So I was kind of determined to replace what had been taken away from me. But isn't it interesting? So many of us have lost our first decks, but then I suppose in the grand scheme of things, we've just got to look at it and put it down to experience and say, well, the thing that we can be thankful for is that they're the decks that started the journey for us. And
and I didn't have after that many decks. I had this. I had the Mythic Tarot.
Oh, is that the? Show me the back, because I haven't seen the card backs of these.
This is the that's the Sacred Rose back.
God, that's gorgeous.
It is, isn't it?
What's the significance? Is that elemental significance?
So I have got the guidebook. It's somewhere. I don't know where it comes with it. It's a small one, but it talks about how these roses. You've got a gold one. It looks brown. I mean, nowadays it would be gold stamped, wouldn't it? But it's brown. You've got the white. You've got the blue. You've got the red, and then you've got this universal rose in the middle. So I'm just trying to line everything up there. So so they all look stunning when they're.
Joe, it's funny. Kat has just said, my first deck was a Celestial Tower and I still have it, but I did get another a year ago. I mean, that's the other thing we've all experienced, isn't it? Sometimes we use a deck to the point where it gets a bit worn down and you end up replacing it. But Aspasia has just said, that feels like a bit of a violation, Chris. It was. And it's kind of one that my little sort of eBay expeditions have put that right, but then
that's exactly what happened to me. As soon as I got back into tarot 5-6 years ago, perhaps I can't even remember when, I went back and I bought on eBay the ones that I wanted then, so the prediction tarot, the Norse tarot, the ones that I'd always wanted as a young person, young adult, but just couldn't access it and couldn't afford it. And certainly, because the only way you could get them you'd have to send a postal order or a check off. And then I had the fear that my parents might accidentally open it. Do you know what I mean? It was like,
isn't it funny, because the shame around tarot, it makes me realize how lucky I was. My parents took me to Manchester to buy my first deck.
Incredible.
I was really lucky in that respect. They're great, because I'd watched Live and Let Die on TV, and I'd seen these wonderful cards, and I just said, what are they? And my dad just said, oh, they're tarot cards.
That's so good that happened to you, though, because so many people.
Well,
I remember
the church was so shit to me. My parents were really cool. I haven't told my parents that those decks actually got, because I thought, some things are better left unsaid. And I have identical copies now, but I mean, Dad's attitude was, oh, you want a set, do you, son? Well, let's phone round and see where we can get them.
That's amazing, Chris, because I know so many people that would have squirreled them away or been given them by sort of some old aunt, or perhaps passed down by a grandmother or something like that. So it's amazing your folks are so on it.
Mine were great, and that, they still are in that, and it's interesting because, I mean, talking to Tarot Shame, I was talking to Christopher Hughes last year, and he was telling me the story of his first deck. So, I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, Chris Hughes is an amazing Welsh druid, and authored numerous books, and actually he's also the author of this incredible deck. But Chris was telling me his first deck was a blue box Rider-Waite that he found in a charity shop, and he just felt immediately drawn to it. But the shame that was hoisted on him was the guy behind the counter in the charity shop saying, "You sure you're old enough to be buying those?" And I think then sort of the cogs started going in said shopkeeper's head that it was still money going in the charity coffers. So he took the money off him anyway. But you're just thinking,
I mean, I wonder where all that's come from from the UK, because that is, I wonder when it all changed, and if it has changed quite so much. But I think it has, because now people don't blink. But even I mentioned about tarot sometimes, and I can sometimes feel a little tensing inside, depending on who's in the room that you might be talking to.
It's funny because when I moved here, we've got some hellos.
Yes, got Joan here. Hello, Joan. And Candy's here.
Andy's here as well. It's lovely to see you both. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny, when I moved here, this is 15 years ago now, but one of the first things that happened, you get invited into a neighbor's house for drinks. It was a bit of a conversation start. What do you do for a living? I'm an artist, and I've just designed 2 tarot decks. And it's like, you could see the faces drop. Not everyone. I mean, a couple of them were curious, but with a couple of the neighbors, I mean, I think they just take me for granted now. But it kind of made me realize that even in 2006, when I moved here, there was still that little bit of fear, I think. So I
think it is. I think it's just people didn't understand, or were just fed the wrong information.
Yes.
Or it was just, as you say, tales of the unexpected and all those kind of slightly weird. Sorry, Basil's just come to join me. He wants to eat the biscuits, and I'm not going to let him do that, because that's a one-way trip to the vet. We don't do that. You can sit there. You can sit there and look cute.
Basil's well behaved, though, isn't he?
He is. He just wants my attention the whole time. So,
Basil is at complete liberty to come and say hello whenever he wants to.
He is trying to. He's not sure. You might see him in a moment. You might get a bit of a tail go past in a moment. Or he might just knock the tablet over. There's so much he can do as a cat.
Absolutely.
So do I show you some of these then?
Yes, because I'm wow.
So I haven't put them in any order. So they've got this wonderful. So the idea behind these were based on stained glass windows. But this has got that lovely 70s vibe to it, hasn't it? With those big flowers, and all the costumes in here are very sort of floaty.
Yeah.
And so each of you always have this kind of nebula background.
Yeah.
There's always trees in there.
Now I see what the fuss is about, because there's several big name tarot authors and artists who've cited this deck as being formative. I think it was Johanna Colbert. I think it was her deck as well. Now, don't quote me on that. Certainly it was. But it's a deck I don't have, but it's one that just keeps coming up in the conversation. And seeing this now, I can see why.
The colours in it are gorgeous. What people don't like about it is they don't tend to have eye pupils in their eyes. They quite often have these.
That's interesting.
White, almost.
Yeah.
There's the magician. I don't know if you can.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Whoops. And again, it follows RWS, but not completely. There's a toffee feel to this deck as well that goes with it all.
Yeah.
But what I particularly like, I'm not going to go through all of them now, but what I particularly like is that they pair up well. So the two, I should have put this in some sort of order. All the majors are facing forward as if they're walking towards you. So the hermit there.
Yeah.
And they've all got this pool of starlight that they're walking out of. Even death, dare I try and find it. I knew I should have put them in order, never mind.
Don't worry.
The Wheel of Fortune's fabulous. It's like something from a 70s album cover.
Oh, look at that. Do you know what that reminds me of? No. Literally a 70s album cover. You know, one of my favorite bands from the 70s. Do you remember Renaissance?
Yeah.
Yeah. They did one of their early albums was called Turn of the Cards.
Yeah.
And it was.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of has that feel of their album cover. Oh, it's beautiful.
It is really nice. And it's one of those things I didn't appreciate the art on it as much as nowadays when I look back at it as a sort of something from the.
And I mean, I'm a culprit with this in that I'm a digital artist, but I think digital art has kind of taken over with modern tarot decks, and it's changed how we see. And when I take so much pleasure in these earlier decks where, do you know, that's the one thing I've not been able to achieve is I've never physically created a tarot deck. It's what I set out to do originally. But I switched to Photoshop. I've created numerous decks, but I see something like this as that's what I would call an artisan deck, because I think there is so much more work and discipline. I mean, certainly more work and discipline than I put in. In something like the Sacred Rose, where it has to be hand drawn. It can only go at a certain pace. And also, I think what I don't have is when I finish, there is no original. My art is a series of digital impulses.
Digital files,
these are genuine original pieces of artwork, physical, tangible,
I really love the court cards in these. They all fit together so nicely. So they're all, again, it's kind of real 1970s, 80s.
It's got that kind of late 70s feel to it.
Yeah. But you can see it's just very lush, and each one really carries their element with it.
Yes. Yeah.
But you can see why it looks like stained glass as well, just in the.
So if I were to say to you, what's when you're doing a reading with that deck, what sets that deck aside to you from any of the others that you use?
What sets this apart?
Yeah. What would you use? I mean, when would you turn to that deck and kind of
I literally do not use this for reading with other people. It's my own personal deck. I think I might have taken it to last time this was used to read for other people would have been when I was at university. So, 20, 30, 40 years ago, 30 years ago now. Yeah. So that was the last time and I'd never used it much then. In fact, I used to wrap this up in black silk, like the whole, you must wrap your cards up in black silk and keep them in a box. And I did. And that's why they're so pristine. I've still got the box that I bought for them. So I would only ever use it for things that and to be honest, I'll probably get it out just to look at, Chris, to be, and then I will do a reading perhaps for something that's really, really important to me.
So that is,
and it would also be something I wouldn't post on social media. So through my channel and stuff, I do cards of the day and so I would never use this for it.
So that's your sacred deck and it's your intimate deck. Wow.
Yeah, it is. It just means a lot to me. It carries an awful lot of memories because of that. I can still think about my friends in the train going up to this fair, psychic fair. I could still remember where it was all laid out, and that's, as I say, nearly 30 something years ago. And it just, it's got so many memories. And I was just having lost my original deck to get this back. And then, it's too special for me. And I mean, it's not an expensive deck and you can still get them on eBay for 20 or 30 quid occasionally. So it's not like it's completely rare.
No.
But I did think the other day I saw one come up on eBay and I thought, shall I?
Yeah.
And I thought, no, because this is the one deck. So.
Yeah, it's encouraging to know because, as I say, it's one that I never actually got and then regretted that I didn't have it by the time it went out of print. And it is stunning. But actually, it's fascinating understanding the personal significance that has to you. Oh, Diesel Girl, I'm late but happy to make it to the live.
Hello, Diesel Girl.
We're thrilled that you're here too, darling. It's lovely to see you. So
there we go. To have a swig of tea. So that's the Sacred Rose.
So while you're having a swig of tea,
oh yeah, I might have a biscuit now.
Just having a bit more cake
before the cat licks them.
This is such good cake.
I have to hide my face while I'm eating.
The fan.
I'm eating behind my fan like something out of Bridgerton.
I need one of those fans.
You do.
You do.
You do.
So,
if only we knew someone that could get one for us.
Should we do another deck?
You do one.
Okay. What we're going to start with? Do you know what? Let's start with this because this is of all the modern decks that have been put out over the last few years, this is the one that I'm really the most passionate about. So, have you seen this before?
No, I've seen images before. I've never had it. The box, I'm going to be honest, the box puts me off.
Crazy thing is, for some unknown reason, this is very rare that this happens. This is not an image out of the deck.
Oh, really?
No, it doesn't even feature in the deck. It's on the title card. But I think it was painted specifically for the title card because I thought when I first saw it, before I'd seen the deck, I thought, well, maybe this is the Empress or something like that.
Yeah, or Queen or something.
Or one of the Queens. But yeah, it's not. So it's literally, that's the title card. But this is, I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I have a huge passion for the Fergus Hall deck that featured in the James Bond film Live and Let Die, because that's how I discovered tarot. It was one of the first decks that I had. And one of the things I loved about it was that the artwork were very obviously, oil paintings, and that's what I really admired. It was a painterly deck, but it's also, I love surrealist art. I love that kind of, I love that sort of naivety in the art. But I think the one thing, and Regina's Tarot and Wirecraft have just joined.
Hi, Regina. She's working again.
Far. And Mickey. Oh, Mickey's got to go. Darling,
hi, Mickey.
It's been lovely to see you. So, and hope the rest of your work day goes well. So, yeah. But you see, the problem with the Fergus Hall deck is that it was basically done as a Marseille style deck with pip cards, which is great because I can read with those. But there was this sneaking part of me that always wondered what would have happened if circumstances had been different, and that had been created after the manner of the Wade Smith.
Yeah.
And when I saw this, I kind of felt as if I'd found my modern day.
Brilliant.
Because it's very surreal.
Yeah.
But it's a fully illustrated deck. So
what's the date of it? When was it made?
This was made. I got this. This is a real treasure because this was bought for my 50th birthday by my close friend Sheila. This was one of her 50th birthday presents to me. So it's another reason I treasure this deck. I think it was 2017 because it was the year I turned 50. So it's about 5 years old.
Okay.
This artist has since done 2 more decks for Lo Scarabeo. He's very, very popular. But it's just, you can see with these.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't they glorious? They are very surreal. I think there's quite a few. There's a kind of feel of Oswald Worth.
Yes.
To this. There's also elements of Marseille in it. It's interesting because the Empress is very much like an old style Empress in regal gear rather than sort of nature garb, as I say. Similar with the Emperor, but they're just so lush. And for me, I love these if I'm meditating or doing path working, because I can close my eyes and I could literally step into this landscape.
They have a hint of like kind of that religious, slightly kind of. I'm going to say like the Sistine Chapel. You know, like those big things that feel arches and niches. It feels like I'm looking at something like that.
Yeah, they've kind of got that sort of Renaissance feel to them as well. When you look at the expression of the paintings, but then you think yourself, there's also kind of the same sort of surrealism that you'd find in a Bosch painting. They're just stunning, and I mean, for me, these just work because I with being a very visual person, they, I like my cards to be three-dimensional, to have depth, and these just feel as if you could step into the landscape, and I think that's why I work with them very well.
That's a really powerful devil card.
It's very powerful, isn't it? It's just very quite in your face. Equally with the tower, it's funny because they're very traditional. They really do follow the Waite Smith and the sort of, with the majors, there's a mixture of Waite Smith, Marseille, even some elements of Thoth in there. There's all sorts of little curious variations as well. I mean, something like normally the star is surrounded by 7 of the stars. There's 8 on here.
Yeah.
And there's little things that you think, oh, that's curious. But all sorts of things that kind of really fire your imagination to explore the images further. One of my all-time favorite sun cards. I mean, I don't think you could.
That's amazing,
isn't it? Just the sun is my favorite card in the tarot, and it's, I mean, I suppose, I'm just, but
the moon is my favorite. The moon's the card I tend to go for to suss out whether I like a deck or not.
You're like me, because I always look for the sun, the moon, and the star, and that tells me whether I'm going to get on with a deck, so that you can see. This really, it kind of gave me what I needed. I wanted a sort of painterly surrealist deck like the Fergus Hall, but one that works like a Waite Smith, and this certainly does. And it's, I think what I delight with this is the fact that, particularly when you're dealing with the minors, he follows Pamela Coleman Smith's iconography very closely, but there's all sorts of curious little twists. I mean, I love the fact that the guy on the 2 of Pentacles is actually perched on the spinning top.
It's brilliant.
It's just really beautiful. And other things that even if he doesn't radically depart from the symbolism, just the way he kind of, this is an interesting one. When you see the three of Swords, the heart is a genuine heart with arteries sticking out, but it's also a head. It's also a face. So, that heart becomes very, very personal. And
that's one of the best 3 of Swords I've seen for a long time. That one that doesn't make you necessarily go, oh, it makes you go, oh,
yes, and it feels very personal. I can sort of sense the.
That's feeling. A lovely interpretation. I'm just getting lots of vibes off that right now. It's like, I like that.
One of my favorite cards in this deck, I mean, is the 6 of Swords. There's nothing radically different, but it's just such an atmospheric and beautiful and peaceful rendition.
There's a lot of movement in that. Normally the 6 of Swords looks like they're a bit stuck on a duck pond, doesn't it? There's no movement in the water. That definitely feels like they're moving.
And we've got, hang on, let me just, there's something crawling out of the water at the side of the boat as well. There's all sorts of little
nuances and things
that really make you look afresh. Let me just see if I can find another couple of highlights. See, the other nice thing is there's lots of you get lots of astronomical and astrological, and zodiac imagery, clouds, and there'll be constellations in the background, and beautiful court cards. They're very surreal. I mean, you can see the Knight of Wands is riding a fire lizard. Let's just have a look what else we've got. Oh, one of my signature cards is the 8 of Cups, and I love this version.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Really beautiful. Yeah.
Beth just asked, I've just noticed in the chat, whether you can show the 5 Pentacles and the Knight of Cups from that deck. So
Knight of Cups,
if you come across it, it's a 5 Pence
bear with
and
me.
the Knight. So don't want to miss out an opportunity on you showcasing here.
Absolutely. So there's your Knight of Cups on a seahorse. So sorry about my focus. My camera, for some unknown reason, doesn't work very well on autofocus, but there we go. If I manually focus that gives you an idea. So that's your Knight of Cups. Your 5 of Pentacles is, there we go. There's your 5 of Pentacles.
Oh, wow.
It's quite Waite-Smith, but again, some really interesting touches. Something I only noticed earlier on when I was looking at this is that the figure on the left is actually an amputee, and I hadn't noticed that. So yeah, it's a very beautiful deck, but it's also a deck that kind of has some. It can be quite dark in places.
It feels it's got quite a vibe to it. I'm seeing, you know.
Yeah. My favorite court's the King of Cups. Because that's, again, it's very traditional to the Waite-Smith. You know, the king is on a platform above the water, but in this case, his throne is a boat. You know, and then you've got all of these amazing mythical seahorses which form, you know, the body and the fabric of the boat. It's just
a bit different to Chris Hughes's King of Cups.
We love that one for different reasons.
Those are beautiful. Thank you for showing those, because it's, as I said, I never picked it up because of the box, but I'm very pleased you showed those. Don't
let the box put you off, because the box it's strange, because normally, with a tarot deck you would expect the box to feature a prominent card, but in this instance it was a painting specifically for the title card, and it's not typical of the rest of the deck. It's a nice painting, but it doesn't really prepare you for what's in here.
Who's the artist again?
The artist is an Italian artist called Giuliano Costa, and this is published by Scarabeo.
Can have a portrait of her.
I think it's him, because I think it's
him. Sorry, Giuliano. Did you say Giuliano?
Yeah. So I don't. The face on this looks vaguely familiar. I wonder if it's based on a well-known Renaissance painting. I'm not sure, but it's not typical of the deck. It's typical of their artistic style, but as I say, it doesn't prepare you for what's in here. Clever little things. I mean, just one more. This is the Wheel of Fortune, and it's based mainly on the Waite-Smith. But when you look, you've got the Hermanubis going up, snake coming down, but then you've got the baboon, which is kind of more from the Thoth and the Waite-Smith the Marseille tradition on the top. So there's all sorts of interesting little fusions going on in here. So yeah, it's a joy. Gerald, bless him. I knew you were going to embarrass us and say this. Gerald, are we going to show Chris Hughes's King of Cups? Now, darlings, I know that Gerald's constitution is strong enough to handle Chris Hughes's King of Cups. I don't know what anyone else's is. Shall we show him?
Look away now if you don't like nudity.
Look away now if you don't like nudity or your sensibilities are a little bit delicate. But just bear with me a second. So, my cards aren't in order. Hang on, I'm going to have to find it. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. We all know it's on the top.
It's almost at the top of the deck. Right. Brace yourselves. So, here is Chris Hughes's King of Cups. So, little more need be said.
But what's weird about that is that there's no nudity really in any of the rest of the deck I can think of. Not as in your face as that one.
He did tell me a story behind that, but I'm not going to repeat it in public.
That's for the after show party.
That's for the after show party, yeah.
Yeah, you have organised an after show party, haven't you? With nibbles and drinks and stuff.
More cake, darling. Yeah. Absolutely. We shall do Chris Hughes' deck on another chat.
We should do that. Yes. A late night chat.
I suppose you're right. That's off indeed. Absolutely. Diesel Girl thinks Chris's King of Cups was very nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not unpleasant. It's just...
Gerald, bless him. Gerald is shocked. No, he's not.
No, he's not. He thinks he does protest too much.
Elemental Cartomancy wants to hear the story. You need to do it.
We have to wait till Tuesday when we're doing our quantum.
Yes. Quantum treasure. You want to do a little plug at this point, darling?
We could do, isn't we? Do you want to do it?
I think Fran was quite shocked as well. I'm a member of a tarot group with Fran, and I think up until this point she thought I was a very nice boy. I think I've just destroyed my reputation.
Well, you are a very nice boy, but
yes, a very, very
with
nice
a lot
boy.
of stories.
Go on, plug next week's casual before
next Tuesday. Now, what's the date? I'm going to have to look it up in my tarot filofax. Give me Tuesday the what? Hang on.
What's the date today? It's the 7th.
Tuesday the 12th.
Tuesday the 12th.
At 9 p.m, I believe, we're doing a casual, which is a casual chat featuring you, me, Gerald from Tarot Stash, Chris from Elemental Cartomancy, and Nancy, I believe. I think that's the on Gerald's channel.
On Gerald's channel.
So look out for that. There'll be lots of thumbnails, and we'll be posting on your social media, and so will I. So make sure you subscribe to everyone's channel, and we'll be.
So that's on for anyone who's subscribed to my channel. I'll put up a thing in the community section for that as well, with all the links and what have you. So yeah. So we've done Chris's. We've done 2, and we've also done Chris's Glorious King of Cups, which actually counts for more than the equivalent of a deck in itself. Go on,
it's equal to the sum of its part.
I think it's more than the sum of its part, darling. Oh, I love it. Joan, on the mention of Chris's King of Cups, Joan has said, wow, that's a big casual.
That would be a big casual. Not to be missed. Absolutely, Joan.
Yeah. So actually, and Tuesday's casual is a big casual, isn't it? Because there's going to be a lot.
It is. It's got a lot to talk about. Everyone's very excited about it.
Yeah. So go on, give us another deck. Something. Because
what should we do next? Should we do? I tell you, let's do my Norse tarot. Let's move stuff about. I'm putting a little tray down because I don't want to keep dropping the cards. And
I'm having another cake.
You have a little bit of cake while I'm doing that. I like to tidy as I go. I'm not one of these people that get all the decks out and then spend half an hour afterwards putting them all away. Right, so this is... Now, we were talking the Norse Tarot, Clive Barrett, which is sadly out of print, but does occasionally come up on eBay in the UK for 30, 40 quid, roughly.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen many for a long time. And this was... Now, we were saying how when we were young, there wasn't that many decks, and that we could. This was one of the decks that was always in the catalogue for prediction or something like that, and it was always on my list of things to do, things to get. And so when I did get back into tarot, and I, did have some money to spend, I bought this. I bought, like I said, the prediction. I bought the Celtic tarot. So I kind of bought all those ones from that period. On the second hand. And I absolutely love this one. It comes with a really nice book. This was published this is one of the older ones. I think they did several versions of it, because this is Aquarian Press, 1989.
Oh, so it's older than I realized. I don't have this, but it was one that in the early 2000s, when I was actually buying. One of the things for me is I didn't start buying tarot books until the early 2000s, because I'd been buying decks in my teens, but I sort of came back to tarot with a vengeance in 2001, 2002. But by that stage, books were the other thing that had started to become really widely available, and there was a wealth of really amazing stuff. And funnily enough, I didn't have the Norse, but it was one that I knew well, because one of my favourite tarot books from this period, a Juliet Sharp book, and of course the Norse was one of the decks used to illustrate. And who was the illustrator?
Oh, Clive Barrett. He wrote it and illustrated it.
Oh, he wrote it and illustrated it.
Yeah.
But it's the samples are stunning.
Have you seen this book? Have you got this book?
No, I haven't. Who's that by?
Rachel Pollack.
Oh, that's Rachel Pollack. No, I don't have that.
Yeah. Well, I had this book when I was, again, first out in tarot. You know, like there was lots of sort of cheap bookshops around then, and I was like,
sorry to interrupt, darling. Gerald's being the bitch that we know and love. Look at this. Books were a lot heavier back in your teens, Chris. Stone tablets are really heavy, darling. I'll get my own back on Tuesday.
Yeah. Make a note of that one.
Go on, what were you saying?
So I bought this. It was in one of the local charity shops, the Oxfam shop. And it cost £2.50.
Wow.
And it's brilliant because it's all mainly black and white, but it's got all those decks that we've been talking about. I'm trying to show this off as best I can on a really bad camera. But it's just going through a series of the different tarots of the time. So this was published in 1989 as well.
See, that's one.
There's even photos of the tarot garden in Barcelona. Is it Barcelona?
Is that the Nicky Santafal one?
Yeah.
One with all the sculptures. Yeah. So I don't have that, but I've got this. I think this was early 2000s. It's another Rachel Pollack one. Similar thing.
Yeah.
Where it's very heavily illustrated. But yeah, it's... I think that's one of the things that Rachel Pollack did really well. She's very good at actually comparing and contrasting decks and actually encouraging you to sort of look for the differences in detail and symbolism, you know?
I mean, if you look at this, it's got Tarot of the Cat People.
Yeah.
It's got the Mythic Tarot. It's got Minor Tarot. The decks on here I've never heard of before. The Dante Tarot. It's got the Fergus Hall in there. You know, it's all of that ilk. The Tarot Garden there.
Oh, wow.
So, but this was kind of what I would read, you know, and that's what inspired me to get all these old decks and stuff like that and try and find them again, because there will come a point where they won't become available at all. You know, as I said, the Norse Tarot is getting rarer and rarer these days, and they're not going to be reprinting it. Which is one of the reasons why I put it in one of Kelly's pouches, because I didn't want to keep taking the packaging in and out and it getting damaged and stuff. So I bought.
Gerald was just saying about Rachel being brilliant at comparing and contrasting, but he's made a very good point here. He's talking about Benabel Wen, and actually that again, that's something that she is very good with when she writes. And it's so, I mean, it was a really important part of my learning process was authors like this really encouraging me to sort of look at the detail and actually just come to appreciate the difference in perspective from each single artist. Just how this is one of the reasons why there will never be too many tarot decks, because every single person who designs a deck will bring a new perspective to archetypes that can never be exhausted. You know,
absolutely,
and
you can just keep retelling or having the same theme. It's like I prefer this much more to the Runic Tarot, which was published. You know, it's a Viking Norse, but this is just so much nicer than it, because it's look at the backs on those. It's just
beautiful.
They're really big cards. I mean, they're wider. They're sort of more oracle size.
Yeah. So they're not quite as big as the Thoth deck, but they're much bigger than a traditional tarot.
And they obviously follow the Norse myth, but they've got gorgeous borders. And it is RWS based, but it's one of those. I do have a problem, Chris, with sometimes when someone tries to theme a tarot deck, particularly an RWS one, around a story or a mythology or something, and it just doesn't fit properly. Do you know what I mean by it? They kind of shoehorn in legends where they think it should be, but this one just seems to work really well.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I mean, I've not used that, and I'm like you. I do have a problem, but the one that works brilliantly for me. But I think it's probably been. It's it's the proof is in the sales and the fact that it's still going strong is the Mythic Tarot. And again, it's Juliet Sharman-Burke and Liz Green, wasn't it?
Well, the latest one didn't sell at all well. They updated it.
They
different artists. It's still the original one's the popular one.
Exactly. These are gorgeous.
The watercolor in them is just amazing, and notice there's always this blue background for most of them. So we have prince and princesses.
What's nice is that I get the impression here that the myths are kind of, obviously the deck is based on the myths, but one of my pet hates is when, the kind of the keyword, when people then start putting keywords and the names on the cards.
Yeah.
That's a real.
So we literally just have I don't know if you can just see it, a Roman numeral up there. It's very, and you have just C at the bottom for cups.
Which is, I hate it when people will put the sort of narrative of the myth or the name of the figure on the card on top of the other title. Because to me, if I don't know, it's just a matter of taste in it. But I like that because it's kind of carrying its theme lightly. If you weren't going to use this deck because of its Norse theme, you could still use it as a very beautiful and deeply symbolic tarot deck, couldn't you? It's gorgeous.
Yeah. All the majors follow
Jared.
Greek
Jared wants her cape with the stars inside.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
Darling, you can have her cape. I will procure the cape for you if you procure me a tarot fan.
I feel that the fan might be easier to get.
Just hold that emperor back up again. That looked really interesting.
Yeah, it's got a bright red sky.
Wow. So it's actually quite Waite Smith again, but then you see there's another, there is obviously another figure behind.
And they've got runes at the bottom for the majors as well, which is interesting. To show you some of my other favourite ones in here. The strength card is the Binding of Fenrir, so you've got the whole.
Wow. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's just, again, it's one of those that I just go to.
I've dropped myself in it. Jared's just sent me the fan and he expects the cape pronto.
I was going to say it's going to be easier. The Eight of Swords is amazing with that dragon asleep on the stone.
Oh, no, I've seen that one because that's actually one of the illustrations in my Juliet Sharman-Burke book. It is incredible. Yeah. And it kind of, what I love about that is that kind of had a feel of The Hobbit about it too.
It does have the whole, it has got that slight Middle Earth. Bearing in mind, this was much before the film came out, but there is that whole Middle Earthy kind of.
It kind of reminds you that Tolkien was kind of dealing with this kind of mythology and, to build his own, wasn't it? It's.
I really like the Eight of Wands because the Eight of Wands is often a card in the RWS I have a bit of trouble with. I find it not the most exciting, but I think that's a really lovely Eight of Wands.
That's clever. That is very clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and they often change the perspective. So here, where are we? 5, 6, 7, 8 of Swords. You're looking down on the fight.
Oh wow!
Which is interesting, rather than having it all.
Yeah. But it's interesting though. It really, you buy a deck like this, and you see what are familiar archetypes in a whole new perspective. But do you then find that you go back to your RWS and you have a deeper appreciation for that as well?
Absolutely, Chris. Absolutely. This is just, particularly with the court cards in this one, because they are, something like that is quite powerful for a Page of Wands, which is what this is. Queen of Wands. Yeah. There's a lot of.
That's very powerful, actually.
Exactly. It's not that usual Queen of Wands that we all
know
and love.
Not completely comfortable when you're kind of seeing a scorched earth thing. Because I always see her as I love the kind of Thoth descriptions of the courts where the combinations of elements, so that whole water of fire thing. So for me, the Queen of Wands very often is kind of expressing that flow of volcanic lava, that flow of emotion, flow of creativity, flow of libido. But actually, that one reminds you that actually fire really does burn sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's another one. That's your Knight of Wands in there.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Again, the fire in there, and it's just spilling over the side. But it's just really lovely. And just looking at it now, I'm just going, oh, I need to use this more. The moon card's amazing. This last one I'm going to show you because I looked at it. But that's the moon card. So it's
not what I expected. It's beautiful.
The god, I can't remember which god it is, the moon god in Norse mythology, but that's who it would be. But I just really love the way he's holding it up there.
Do you know, that's interesting? That reminds me of have you ever seen the Cosmic Tribe Tarot? It's the sort of It reminds me of the star card in that, because you're holding up the star, and it's just very, very powerful, isn't it?
And the great thing about this, James, is that you don't have to know the Greek. I keep calling it the Greek, the Norse myths with this one. But it's all about everyday lifestyle. So yeah, it would help to know about your Norse gods and stuff like that. But most of it is RWS enough to be able to get something out of it, and it's very much about everyday life within that Norse community, rather than, oh God, I've got to sit, read the whole of Beowulf and flick my way through lots of books on it. It's really easy, and I mean the book that comes with it is really easy, and it's not.
But I think that's why that's a successful theme deck. I mean, it's like going back to the Mythic Tarot again, isn't it? You can use the Mythic without necessarily understanding the Greek myths, but
absolutely.
When you read the guidebook that goes with it, then the cards become enriched again.
It unlocks it all a bit more, doesn't it?
The key for a successful tarot deck for me is that you can take it out of the box and use it straight away without having to, sort of go through all those explanations. But
I never read the book until much later.
No, the images for me are what have to speak primarily. The book is there to serve the images. And if you end up where, you're having to sort of constantly refer to the book, or, what you first see on the cards doesn't necessarily make a great deal of sense, then that's why something's missing. And I actually point, I think I would point several fingers back at myself as a deck creator, because, I look back at some of the stuff I've done in the past, and you realize that actually that's the lesson I'm still learning, even 5-6 decks down the line, that it's that simple thing that somebody has to pull that deck. If a complete beginner was pulling your deck out of the box, does this image fully explain itself? And if I'm honest, sometimes the answer to some of the stuff I've created, I would say yes, but other times I would have to say no. And that's as a deck artist, that's the lesson that I don't think you ever stop perfecting that one.
No, but that's a very honest answer you gave. But actually, it's really lovely to hear that, as well as as listening to a creative going, this is how I would foresee it, and this is how I would move forward on it. And I think you're absolutely right. You've got to open a deck, be able to shuffle it a few times, and off you go. Not have to plow your way through a book on how to read it and and that's the problem I had with the runic tarot.
Yeah.
Even though I know my Norse myths and stuff, the artwork was so detached from what I knew, it was just left me cold. So
I think Gerald's just offered me a fan.
Oh.
A tarot fan. That would just be absolutely beautiful.
That's this one, the tarot fan.
Yeah. That is, I would love one. And we will come to
well, it's going to be a hot summer. You need it to keep yourself cool during it all.
The amount of heat and bluster, we're generating on here. It's hot.
I don't want to fancy. I just realized I've got naked candles going on. I mean, candles burning, not naked.
Just to sort of reassure anyone who's watching that spontaneous human combustion is not a planned part of this broadcast.
If it is, we'll switch it off. So I better not wave my fan around too much with naked flames going on behind me. Now, I might blow that out in a minute.
Your Norse tarot, when do you pick it up to read with? What's the kind of flavor of that deck that you
do that on really pagan-y times. Now I would probably use the Druid craft first. My Druid craft one day I will tell you the long saga. It is almost of a Norse saga of my relationship with the Druid craft tarot. I won't do that now with you. But my Druidcraft is often the ones that I will look at because I just like the seasonal of it all. But that one is for particular pagan times, and I tend to use it in Yule and solstices and equinoxes. That would be when I would use it.
Yeah.
Again, it's probably a deck that I would use for me because I instantly can work with it. Whereas if I started to have to explain it to people with the images on there, the images might not read to some be able to be unlocked by people that you were doing a reading for. I feel like I'd have to do a lot of explanation about Norse myths and stuff. And I don't particularly want to get into that territory when I'm doing a reading. I like to be quite, fluid coming up, going, oh, this is a bit about Odin when he hung himself and sacrificed himself. And I love the stories, but for me, that's my own personal reflective moment of it. So that's when I would use it. Again, very selfishly, it's a deck that I would use for me at special times when I feel connected to ancestors. I think it's a real ancestry deck for me.
I don't think that's selfish at all, because I think there's quite a distinction between readings for yourself and readings for other people.
Yeah,
I've got decks that I very definitely wouldn't use if I was reading for other people. Generally, I mean, it's kind of weird as a deck creator. If you're reading for other people, people very often expect me to read with my own cards. Now that works well for me because I understand, I kind of know those images inside out. But ironically, I tend not to use my own cards to read for myself. Well, I know those images too well.
Yeah.
And very often that leads to a level of complacency when you're actually reading for yourself.
And I suppose as well, it's a bit like if you had an image that you you must have, as you're designing each image, something going into your brain about what was going on in that day that you were making it, and you bring in was I in a good mood, was I in a bad mood? This image was just a bastard to have to create. And that must somehow stick when you're trying to read it, thinking, oh, I really like this card, it came really easy, or this one was just hell to work with.
It's funny because if you're reading for other people, you're sort of out of your own experience and into their experience and discussing their experience. And I find reading with my own decks works brilliantly for that. But it is precisely that thing that certain cards are problematic. Certain cards are very much a product of what I was going through at the time. So if I was going to be designing them again, I would do something very different now. And you're just too familiar with them as the artist. So I find if I'm reading for myself, I'm very much, I've got a couple of Waitsmith decks that I'm very attached to. Again, the deck that we've just shown, the Mystical Tarot, is a go-to deck for myself. A couple of others that are really sort of key. I mean, again, my original decks, my Swiss One JJ, my Blue Box Waitsmith, my Fergus Hall, they're all the kind of decks that I read for me. Whereas reading for other people, that's when you kind of come into your own with your own decks, because you're kind of every last detail. Therefore, you can guide people very effectively through those images. So no, I don't think. I mean, you having,
and also I suppose on a purely level playing field, these cards, these decks that I've shown are they mean a lot to me. Yes. They're also quite difficult to get hold of now. I don't want someone shuffling and bending it and messing. No, I'd happily, I've got enough RWS stuff. I've got some really dreadful Kickstarters decks that I'm happy to people to drop in the mud if they want to. But it's like that.
Do you let people touch your cards? Because I don't.
So it's such a long time ago that I've done. I do like them to touch the cards. I always ask them, would you like me to shuffle for you? But I always at least get them to do the cutting of it.
See, what I do is I generally don't let people I'm reading for touch my cards. Well, the only time I do is I shuffle, I'll spread the cards out in a row, and then I'll say pick, and I just get them to point, and then I draw the cards out.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it's I've never had anyone question me, but I'm just really I'm terribly OCD over my cards.
Oh, I get that. You know? And then also I'm very much, if I'm not pulling the cards out and doing it that way, I'm normally getting them to cut. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough. Biscuit crumb went down the wrong way. So it comes to trying to eat and talk at the same time. I'm not very good at it.
Can I just interrupt briefly?
Yeah.
I'm just a comment up from Aspasia. I've been looking at that deck for years, Richie. That was the push I needed.
Oh, you bought it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, Beth, I'd really love to know how you get on. In fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you. How about coming on the channel and we can do a chat about it if you fancy doing that one? If you're up for that one.
I'll watch that. Now, this is interesting. Chris, last time I read for someone in person was my friend Robbie, and he did not want to do any shuffling. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's, again, I mean, every reading is different. I mean, I don't generally let people touch my cards. I know, obviously, some of my friends are very different. They want, you know, their querent to actively shuffle. But I think the main thing for me is it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you've got a way of actually establishing trust and connection, you know?
I think you have to know. I also get a vibe off that person straight away whether I want them to touch them or not.
Yeah. I had early bad experiences handing my cards over to people and getting them back scratched because, you know, they'd be scraping them along tables and, you know, all of this sort of thing. And I'm thinking, I also have this thing, I think a tarot deck is something incredibly sacred. Not, you know, even if I was a complete atheist, I would still see it as something sacred, because it's a picture book of, you know, the depth of human experience. And I treat it, you know, the physicality of the deck, I kind of treat like a sacred text. But again, it's everyone has a different approach, you know. So, did I cut across you and we've kind of just gone completely off?
No, I like these chats because I think that's what makes these things so brilliant. Otherwise, people think we're just scripted monkeys. We would be.
We're not scripted, are we, darling?
No. I just think Beth won't. Beth, don't worry about the tech part. I can do that bit. You just have to sit there and talk if you want to, or you don't, or perhaps not be shown. You can just have your hands if you want to, but there's no pressure. But yes, I'd love to know what people think about that deck.
You'll be hiding behind the fan anyway, won't you, love?
Yeah. Well, let's face it. If Chris can do this on his first one, anyone can do it.
Disaster, and I've actually managed to navigate StreamYard. I'm really proud. You did help me though, so I'm kind of proud of myself.
Well, I'm very proud of you, young Padawan.
Should we have another deck?
Shall we? It's your turn, isn't it?
Right. Do you know what? Let's do the.
Do you mind if I quickly just go and get a drink of water because I run out of tea and I don't want to be coughing? I'm just going to turn my camera off for a second. I will be.
Oh, he's left me alone. So, as they would have said in the cinema, and now the intermission. But in the meantime, while Richie's away, because Richie actually knows what we're going to be looking at, I thought I'd show you this, because this is literally one of a kind. There is only one of these, and there is only ever going to be one of these. But this was my early test copy of what became the Healing Light Tarot, because when I'd finished the artwork, thankfully by this stage, where were we, 2015 I think it was, I finished this deck. Oh, you're back.
I'm back.
That was
I
quick.
heard everything you said about me too.
I was just saying about this, so
I'm adjusting my lighting, so I don't know if I like it or not.
You're fine. You're looking radiant.
I'm just going to say, I'm going to put it on gold rather than that kind of hospital clinical white that these lights often have. You know what I mean? Oh, that's better. I feel like I'm on holiday now.
Gerald says I'm a tease.
You are.
I am.
But not such tease as he is.
What? Darling, I'm a
tease as well.
I'm a sweet, innocent boy from Liverpool. I wouldn't know about these things.
Of course you are.
Anyway, what we were saying about this. So this became the Healing Light Tarot. So by the time I finished this in 2015, we'd had that wonderful technological development called makeplayingcards.com. because when I'd done decks in the past, if I wanted a test copy, I used to have to print them out on my inkjet and laminate them and cut them out myself. And then all of a sudden you could upload your images and this wonderful company would print a single copy, which they did. So originally we didn't have a title for this at the stage. And because it was themed around Mandorla and Vesica Pistis, I just called it Tarot Cards After the Theme of Mandorla. There we go. Chris Butler, 2015. So,
that's a mouthful, isn't it?
It is a bit. So thankfully, Lo Scarabeo very rightly concluded that the Healing Light Tarot was much more sensible and also much more saleable. And they were brilliant to work with because they kind of really realized this deck to the best that I could have hoped for. But originally, you can see the Healing Light Tarot, if you buy it now, is borderless. But originally, these had faded black borders that faded into the cards. So
what was the reason for changing it?
It was, I had a great, my editor, Rick, was just really brilliant. And it was his idea because he said to me, he said, look, I know, he said, these look great with borders. He said, but we were looking at them in the office and we were thinking, is there any reason why we couldn't go borderless with them? And the funny thing is, I'd sort of wanted to go borderless original, but hadn't suggested it because even back in 2015, it was a lot more expensive to produce a borderless deck.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They tended not to. I mean, now it's more normal. You know, it's become normalized that decks will be borderless. So when Rick said that, I thought, great, you know. So we kind of just recropped the images and, you know, they were done borderless. But, you know, originally this is how they were designed to look. They're quite dark. And I think at least going borderless sort of brought, it did sort of take a little bit of that distraction away. But
I have to say I really like the borders on it, and I don't often say that. But
the funny thing is, I kind of like both because I still use the deck, and this is my treasure deck. This is my personal deck because there is only one of these. There's actually a hand printed copy out there that an absolute darling friend of mine. I gifted it to him. It's a friend of mine called Billy, who now lives in New Zealand, and his copy has got borders, white borders that fade into the images, but that was hand printed on my inkjet and then just laminated. The one thing that I'm not sure whether I did the right thing, I changed the back design. Now, I love the published version, the back design, but this was the original back design.
I love that.
It's funny, it was only afterwards I thought, ooh, maybe I should have stuck with that, because I kind of like the sort of graphic quality of it. So yeah, this is my personal deck. It doesn't. I kind of keep this for really special readings for other people. If somebody's kind of, if I've got one of my close mates who's sort of in crisis, or if they're at a turning point or a crossroads, I think if this comes out the box, it only gets it. I only use this when people come to stay, and I kind of use this that if it's a real emergency, or you know, this, it kind of it's my way of saying, look, this is that extra little bit important that we're going to use the posh deck. You know,
it's the equivalent of getting the special Christmas cutlery out, isn't it? Christmas plates and stuff. Oh,
I just noticed Joan hadn't realised that I made the Healing Light Tower. I did, yes. So it's mine. So this was the first copy before it was even called the Healing Light Tarot. So this is kind of probably the most personal deck I have. I think because I did make a few changes after this was printed. There were changes to brightness and contrast, and also a couple of minor details, because these test copies are really important, because it's the first time you actually, as a digital artist, it's the first time you see the artwork in physical form. So with this, it was important for me to be able to see this and then see what needed tweaking. So there's a couple of things that are slightly different on here, you know, but not much, funnily enough. I mean, it was kind of a weird deck. It just happened and it flowed. It was created in 2 blocks. I think I created about 20 odd cards, and then it was left alone for about 6 weeks where the creativity just dried up. And then when I started again, it literally just zipped through. So it was created, you know, it took a couple of months, but yeah, it's so there is only one of those, and I hate to say it, but it's all mine. But if you do like,
I've got a question for you. Sorry, this is a really grisly question. You don't have to answer it.
Go on.
Have you thought about what you might do with it when you go to some other spiritual place?
What with these?
Yeah, what would you do? Would you leave it to give it to relatives or donate it somewhere?
I don't know. I mean, it kind of, I think in the grand scheme of things, you know, I'm not, you know, I mean, I couldn't exactly leave this to the Victoria and Albert because I think they wouldn't give a
No,
top.
but there are certain museums and collectors, aren't there, that would catalogue it and make sure it's not just put away in a box and forgotten about, all the perishing thoughts chucked away.
You realise that in an ideal world, I would probably, because there's the Tarot Museum in Belgium, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I would probably, have them packaged up and sent somewhere like that. Because, you know, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you know, for the majority of people in the world, you know, they're going to know what this is. But I suppose somewhere like the Belgian Tarot Museum, they would be saved for people who do know what they are.
To come and have it. It's, you know, it's a fabulous deck that most of us have got, a version of.
Yeah. You see,
and it would be a shame for it to just kind of disappear. Sorry, it's a very grisly and gruesome thing.
No,
you know?
it's not at all.
But I often actually think what's going to happen to my decks, because Peter, Peter knows, I don't think he knows how much some of them are. And I know he would, I don't know what he would do. And perhaps I need to think about making sure that they, even if they're sold on eBay, that somebody's put in control of it that actually knows what a decent price is for it.
Yeah.
So I need to have some kind of, I don't know what you call them, tarot angels, tarot guardians to kind of make sure that
we need tarot executors, darling. Actually,
yes, we do.
Now Aspasia has just said, isn't there some type of museum like that in Oxford?
I think there is, yeah.
I realise, so that's actually really wonderful to know. But yeah, I mean, I must admit, I have taken really great pleasure in the past. A lot of these test copies, I don't have many of them myself because I've actually, they're kind of things that they've got given to people who really matter at the time. Because when Kay Stopforth and I did the Quantum Tarot, the very first version, we printed off 2 copies on the inkjet, and I gave mine to a good friend of ours at the time called Jo Garner, who we'd met through the Eclectic Tarot Forum. And Jo was she really motivated us and cheered us on while we were working on the deck, because it was, we struggled with it. And it was just, it was kind of a real joy to kind of give my copy to Jo when I got the commercial courtesy copies came through. There's a couple of others. I mean, I still have my very first test copy of the Sun Tarot, which bears very little resemblance to the final published copy. But there was other test copies or revisions that were gifted to friends, or people who I knew would look after them and understand their significance. Every now and again, I have actually printed slightly altered test copies out as gifts for people. Specifically for birthday and Christmas presents, where I'll alter a couple of cards. So, but the kind of nice thing about those is knowing that when they pass on, even if they end up in a junk shop somewhere, somebody is going to end up holding that deck, even if they don't understand its significance. And then that's kind of nice as well, because you think there's a whole secret life to that deck that they won't realize, and then they might discover at some stage. So I don't see it as morbid. I just find it fascinating. I mean, isn't it interesting to think that, I don't know, I mean, I'd hope quite a way down the line that somebody who I don't know or have no connection with could be holding this, but then it's then taken on a whole new life of its own. It enters a new chapter. I mean, I've just been reading, I reread it again recently. It was something that I read during lockdown, And you know, when lockdown frustration, when you're struggling to concentrate and you think, right, I need trash reading to relax myself, because ordered myself an out of print Star Trek novel on eBay, thinking it was going to be crap, and of course it turned out to be anything but. And to my utter incredulity, it has a tarot storyline.
Oh wow.
You get this fabulous scene where Dr. McCoy's new girlfriend is reading Spock's cards. And what makes it even lovelier is he picks up a card with his usual curiosity and says, "These are antiques." And she says, "Yeah, they're about 300 years old. You know, they originated on them on Earth, but I got them from an antique market on, you know, some alien planet." And actually, as the reading goes on, you realize that she's actually describing a, you know, an original first edition of the Mythic Tarot.
Oh, really?
Just a really beautiful touch. And we don't think about this. These things could well be around in 200-300 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, particularly now, you know, a lot of them have coatings and plastic, and I've got several plastic decks. They're not going anywhere. You know, they're going to be around for thousands of years. You know, they're not going to suddenly just dissolve into something. So yeah, you know, it's. I often think about not only the legacy, but how I would get it passed on, and you know, and what the future holds for them. You know, excuse the pun, but you know, where would they end up?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, I mean, this kind of, you know, I mean, one of the difficulties with stuff like this is, you know, when you're gone, this is all that people have to form their conclusions about you. And I mean, if somebody actually was just looking at this with no other evidence, they'd actually think that I actually was a person that had a great deal of dignity and gravitas and mysticism. And I mean, if this YouTube live survives, I mean, that will kind of throw that one out the window. Won't it? Yeah. I mean,
perhaps you should write a little note, put it in there, sort of, look up this on YouTube at this certain amount of time. link it in.
I'm a firm believer in decks having a title and a back card because they're good protection. And maybe I should actually have an inscription, you know, on the back card that just says he really wasn't that dignified or mystical, you know.
But the world loved him.
He baked good cake, you know.
Really made me laugh. Oh, I need to get my fan out now. I've got a bit of hot.
Yes, it is why. Oh, hang on. Have I just? Oh no, there we are. I thought Joan's comment.
It does that occasionally.
That is so true. Joan, give me 2 seconds. I will go and get the book. It's out of print, but I will show you the cover so that you know which one it is.
Okay. I'm just having a look at other people's chats, though. Beth, you said I'm writing mine into. Oh, giving the cards into your will. I want to make sure my kids can sell them on eBay. That's a really good idea. But I insist each one picks out a deck to use to what a lovely idea. So they get to pick a deck and use that to communicate with you, and then the rest can be followed.
Oh, blimey. I've just realized I've got a bookmark in the page of the tarot reading. This is the book. So it's Star Trek The Lost Years by J.M. Dillard. I think it's out of print, but I got this. I mean, you know, you'll find secondhand copies on Amazon or on eBay. But it's really lovely because it becomes apparent that she's reading with a 20th century copy of the Mythic. And here we are. Spock complied to McCoy's surprise. He shuffled the cards with the practical ease of an Arcturan casino dealer. "These are antiques," the Vulcan said admiringly. She nodded proudly. "They're over 200 years old, made on Earth, but I got them from a dealer on Rigel." But it goes on to describe the reading. And it was just so lovely because all of a sudden I thought, I know that deck. I've got that deck. You know?
Brilliant.
And funny enough, this made me pick the Mythic Tarot up again for the first time in years.
I
and
bet.
just, yeah. So there you go. Yeah, legacy with cards. It's really important. And actually, I love that idea of. I mean, I don't have kids, but what a lovely thought of gifting somebody a deck in your will so that they can actually communicate with you. That's very, very special.
We'll have to think about that now. That's going to be. Oh, there's a video to make. And I gift this to you. This is the deck that I would gift.
Should we swap decks? Wouldn't that be amazing? We can carry on having bitches and stitches on the other side.
Coming through now. Here they come channeling. He's eating cake.
Yeah, I mean, you got away from me. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Have you got now? You have got another deck that we need to see.
I do have one more deck. Yes.
How are we for time? Because it's
one. We've been on an hour and 30 minutes. So
right, we probably get away with one more. Should we?
Yeah, we do one more.
Yeah.
No, this is one we both have, isn't it?
Yeah. This is a real beauty.
So this is the Robert Lichodziejewski. Now, I've noticed Robin's popped into the chat now, which is really good timing because I know Robin has got this deck and I showed it to him and he went and bought it because of it. So it's very, very timely, everyone. This has got a story, funny enough. Not all my tarot decks have a story, but this one does. I took a break from tarot for many years.
Yeah.
And when I got into it again and started thinking about what I was going to do with my given skills, how I was going to bestow this upon the world, before I'd even thought of YouTube and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I'm going to just have a look round and I fancy buying a few decks. Let's see, in my absence, what's been produced. And this was quite early on. I came across this deck on eBay.
Similar to me.
And it was the first deck that I bought that then I made a video to and started the channel and
really?
Yeah.
Wow. So this was your first deck review.
I think it was. Now, the reason I bought it is it was simply because I've been talking about tarot to Peter, my husband, who didn't know this about me when we married, because I've never picked up a tarot deck in my life. And sort of, he was a bit like, oh, okay, and kind of wanted to know a little bit more. So I thought, I tell you what, we'll outfox him. We'll get a Polish deck, and that will, of course, make everything all right, won't it? Because, it's the two loves of my life, Polish things and tarot. So there we go, combined in one. So anyway, long story short, I bought this on eBay, and I instantly fell in love with it. And it was the first deck, as I say, that I bought after a long period of time. And it's at this point I realized I love secondhand decks on eBay and buying secondhand decks. A lot of people have a bit funny sort of phobia or belief that's not right, but I consider myself as a bit of a retirement home for knackered tarot decks that, want to serve their lives out by occasionally being picked up and read with, but they're quite happy to just sit on the shelf generally for the rest of their lives. And that's how I kind of nurse them and look after them and nurture them that way.
Yeah, well, actually, we are remarkably similar in that respect, because I don't have a problem if a deck has been pre-owned. It's important for me that, it takes on a different life with each person it passes on to, But so, if you're like me, did you get quite a surprise when you saw these illustrations?
Yeah.
They're stunning. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was quite an old deck, and it wasn't till a few days ago when I knew I was talking about this. I thought I better look up Robert.
Yeah.
And he's not as old as I thought he was.
How old is he?
He's only about 43, 44.
Really?
I assumed he was kind of sort of in his a few years older than that. And no, he's very, I think he's 43 or 44 now.
Oh.
From what I gather.
So I mean, this is about, I don't know, maybe about 10 years old. So he would have been quite young when he
been in his 20s, late 20s, or possibly 30s. But what I love, firstly, is how very Polish it is. And by that, I'm just going to show you the backs, because when I visit my Poland and my lovely in-laws, you go around and you see these very bright colours and these floral patterns in everywhere. It's almost like sort of like country living, and it's really hard to describe it there. And the first time I looked at it, I went, "Oh, that's." But I love it. The more I look at it, the more I love it.
My Polish connection is I had a Polish landlady in my early 20s, and she was the widow of the Polish ambassador, so the household was very Polish. And when I saw these, you know, it had Mama Czerpicka written all over them, you know.
Yeah.
It would have just been that could have been her wallpaper.
Yeah.
You know?
Or a cloth over the table.
Cloth over
yeah. Hi, Calla. I think Calla's arrived.
She baked fabulous cakes. I think
my mother-in-law makes the best handmade jam donuts ever.
Really? I'm not surprised, because it's like, if you were, see, Mama lived on the ground floor. She had this big 4-story house. So she had the ground floor to herself, and then she let out the 2 upper floors and the basement as a self-contained flat. So of course I was on the 1st floor. Now, you didn't, if you came down the stairs to go out, if time was short, you kind of had to furtively sneak down the stairs, because she was so friendly and so hospitable that if she heard you coming down the stairs, you literally got dragged in for tea and an avalanche of cakes and jam donuts. And it was just like, it's just like Polish heaven.
I know.
I mean, she was a joy of a woman. She was just, you know, she really was. But there is that particular type of Polish hospitality. That,
well,
you know,
I went to a Polish wedding a few years ago. My brother-in-law got married. I have never been to a wedding so joyous. And it was a 2-day event. It's kind of, you do everything on the first day, like the actual wedding. And the second day, and it was a non-stop eating fest of just lovely, lovely cakes and lovely, lovely food. So
Calla's just dropped in.
Hi, Calla.
Super late, but we don't care. It's just lovely that you're here.
We're here to
talk about that. So, oh, there we go. Toadstool Tarot.
Robin, yeah.
Yeah, Robin, the borders and the back of mine are darker.
Yeah, got a later edition. Yeah.
Yes, indeed, because the new editions, Robin, I presume yours has got black borders, because ours has got white borders. But I think your copy will have gold edges as well. But I know that it's the same artwork, but the surroundings are much darker, as you say. So yeah, new editions are slightly different, but actually equally beautiful. Yeah.
And these are huge cards, aren't they, Chris? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I've got quite small hands. So
standard. I mean, I know Sacred Rose is a standard RWS size.
Yeah.
But just to compare.
Yes, it is significantly bigger, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Robin, the figures in the deck have a lanky dynamism.
Exactly, and that's one of the joys I love about this deck.
Yeah.
Mine titles are yours actually in Polish.
Mine are in Polish as well, yeah, because I don't think you can. I don't think you can't get them in English, can you? It's specifically just a Polish publication.
But it's RWS, so it's pretty obvious what they are. But the illustrations, I don't know what it is. It's kind of got. How would you describe the artwork in this?
Oh,
I'm going to go with slightly communistic church Catholic icon with a hint of cartoon kind of action. That's the only way I can describe it.
You know what you just reminded me of?
No.
Communist propaganda posters.
Yeah, it's got
it's got that feel, and it makes you realize that. Oh yeah, just look at it. Again, it's a deck. One of the reasons I love this deck, it's a deck that if I'm visualizing and path working in my head, I can literally, they feel, they've got so much depth visually. You can just step into them, you know. Look at that. I love that Page of Cups because it's just, I love the tunic, you know, with the flowers on. It's all RWS, but again, with a really unique artistic perspective.
I just like the fact that, which I don't get often with the original RWS, is how grounded and how planted these people are. You feel like they are firmly on the ground when you look at that.
It's quite an earthy deck, isn't it?
Yeah. And because it's so big, it's almost got like a weight to it. It's really quite difficult to explain it.
Robin's just said the High Priestess could be the Queen of Vulcan from Star Trek.
There is a Star Trekky.
Yeah, Robin, watch if go back and watch Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. It's the campest performance ever. I think it's Dame Edith. No, is it Dame Edith Evans or Dame Judith Anderson or something? And it was kind of one of her last roles.
Edith Evans was dead by that point, I think. So
yeah, Judith Anderson. Yeah. Anyway, there she is. You know,
there she is. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Fran, name of the deck again. It's the
It's the Robert. I'm going to say it because I've written it down. That's how you say it phonetically. Lichodziejewski. Lichodziejewski.
It's Fran. It's actually what I'll do is it's published by Studio Astropsychology, but what I'll do is we'll put all the names of the decks that we've discussed in the description of the video after we finish broadcasting. This one is well worth getting hold of if you can, because it is a beauty.
It has got a real kind of science fiction-y. Robin's absolutely right. You look at this one, the characters in there.
Yeah.
But you get this sense, as you say, of this communistic kind of like, it's hard to put a finger on it. It's kind of like the countryside is very lush.
Yeah.
And, you know, the weather's nice in it. And
you've just made me realize, because actually when you look at an RWS, it could only have been inspired by the British countryside.
Yeah.
Whereas actually when you look at this, it's inspired by something very different. And yet it is so very close to the RWS.
Yeah.
But there's an angularity and also a kind of scale of landscape in this that,
yeah,
I just don't think an English or British artist would have been able to create. I mean, what I love, it's things like this, the architecture, say in the six of Pentacles. You know, it's kind of very Eastern European, isn't it? And that's what the magic.
If you look at, as you say, they're very muscular, but there's a lot more action. You know, the dust is being kicked up here and the hair's flying around. You know, it's a lot more. And I mean, the King of Swords, I mean, he looks like something from a Russian Tsar. Kind of.
Yeah. And yet a lot of the tiny details, again, there's a lot of the tiny details observed from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but it's also, there's a lot of unique little details of its own. Robin said it's got some hunky guys in it. I think we can concur on that one, you know.
If you look at like the Hanged Man,
it's amazing.
I mean, I know all the characters are stretched and quite muscular, but it's again, that's got like a very church-like way it's been painted, isn't it? That's why I'm very surprised he was only very young when he painted it. I just kind of assumed that it was a very more mature artist.
Yeah, I'm really shocked because, I mean, it's given me a whole new respect again, because I mean, this is just, it's a very painterly deck, you know.
I love the Two of Swords. I don't often say that about a deck, but I really like the Two of Swords here and the way the hair's blowing.
Very, very atmospheric and
it is.
You know. The Moon card is one I love because it's the same, but not what I would expect, because I wouldn't have expected to see a green sky on a moon card.
Yeah.
And yet it just works. It feels very otherworldly and dreamlike. You know, you're sort of in a different realm of consciousness when you sort of, you know, you're in this card.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is one of my favorite sun cards.
And I really like as well the sun card's gorgeous.
Yeah. What was that?
I really like the Nine of Cups because this character, he's got a real jolliness.
And it's funny because you've just made me realize with that, it doesn't look as, you know, the RWS Nine of Cups I love, but it can be interpreted as a bit twee, whereas he couldn't be, you know.
No.
There's kind of an attitude and a personality about him there.
There's almost a sense of what's his name in the Wizard of Oz, you know, the Marvel magician is that sense with that hat on and very corpulent and very.
It's the same sort of personality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
would
the
you use this deck?
Sorry?
Do you use this for yourself, or do you use it for other people?
I used to read with it. The only problem with this, it's such a big deck.
Yeah.
The cards are so big, is that if you're
You
going to
need a
do
big
a big reading with somebody, you need a lot of space. And I tend to be, if I'm taking it somewhere, people don't have a lot of space. But I would actually read with other people because it's different, because it's RWS based, as we said, but it's got that different, slightly otherworldly.
Yes.
I think that adds to the mystique of it. And stop me if I'm wrong, but when we read tarot cards, there's that little element, isn't there? Just when you turn that card over and you go, oh. We all like that moment.
We have enough je ne sais quoi that it doesn't really matter, does it? You know?
No, exactly.
You know, I'm being sarcastic. Now that I love that Four of Pentacles. It's got real defensive
hiding behind it almost.
Yeah. Cinecast, RWS has some Moroccan style characters. Why is that?
Yeah.
I'm really not sure. But then the one thing I do know about Pamela Coleman Smith is that she was well traveled, but also that she was deeply steeped in myth, fairy tale, and folklore. She had a parallel career as a children's storyteller for hire. And she would turn up at parties in basically a sorceress outfit. I mean, she was fabulous. She would be dripping in beads.
I've got a picture of her here. She's kind of got this weird.
There we are. Yeah. And she would retell traditional Jamaican folk tales and fairy tales as well as. So I think there was a lot of influences from a lot of cultures that worked its way into that deck.
And she also worked in the theatre, so she was a designer, and she hung around with the hoi polloi of the Victorian theatre world. And they were very taken with particular Egypt and particular Victorian pleasures of the Orient and places like that. So she probably saw lots of costumes and stuff like that around her that would, I think, as you say, she'd love to dress up and put on spare theatre costumes and just.
But she was highly revered by some of the biggest names of the day, and it's kind of fascinating that she kind of went into eclipse, in terms of her career reputation. Because I mean, you look at the guest book from her, from her studio. I mean, regular visitors: Bram Stoker, Arthur Rack. She was the sort of adopted, her legal guardian was Ellen Terry, who was the greatest of the day.
It would be like being fostered by or looked after by Dame Judi Dench, wouldn't it, nowadays, in a day, and Maggie Smith, and being kind of going to those wonderful after show parties and stuff that
and yet would have been. She was just viewed as an equal within that circle. So, when you kind of read contemporary accounts, the likes of Rackham and Bram Stoker viewed her as basically one of the most talented illustrators of her generation. And certainly as in terms of the stage design, they held her in really high esteem. Fascinating woman,
And also Yeats, she hung around with Yeats quite a lot, did a lot of work for Yeats, and he was very into his
Now this is an interesting one. Just looking here, Robin's just put the Six of Coins, Six of Pentacles is like Rumpelstiltskin. I think there's just something. One of the reasons I love reading with this, you'll probably find the same. It's very recognizably traditional Waite Smith, but then there's something just that little bit edgy about it when you're least expecting it.
Well, it's like the Death card. You're absolutely right. I mean, they're like power stations in the background, aren't they? It's that whole.
Yeah.
And if you think about that Pope and the whole of the Catholic, I love the fact this horse looks the angriest looking horse I've ever seen in my life, I mean, but there's again, it's got that communistic poster feel to it, doesn't it?
Very much. Yeah. It's just stunning. I'm just going to make a shout out here because Trisha McDonald has just posted. I've been watching Chris's lessons on YouTube. Trina, that's really lovely to know.
Oh, that's nice. Hi, Trina.
And if you're new here, welcome, because it's actually a joy, and we're going to be doing more of these. So it's lovely to see you. So
I'm going to just talk about two more because I know we said we're going. The Ten of Swords, I mean, is just look at that, but
it's creepy in a positive way.
Yeah, it's got everything. It is the thing of nightmare. It reminds me a little bit of. Do you remember the video to The Wall, Pink Floyd, The Wall?
Yes.
And the teacher and the hammers and all that. Which again was based on Nazi propaganda stuff, wasn't it? Yeah. But it's got that kind of nightmarish quality, particularly that sky.
The sky,
and what I think are trees in the background.
Because those trees, that's really the stuff of nightmares, isn't it?
It is, isn't it?
Melting, but then they're almost like teeth in a mouth as well.
I was going to say, it's like you're inside a mouth, isn't it? Yeah. Looking out at like a dog's mouth or something.
Yeah, very, very powerful. Yeah, Franz just used the word emotive, and I think that's exactly spot on. Yeah. What's the other one you were going to show?
It's this one. It just makes me laugh because
what's that?
It reminds me of Flash Gordon. You remember the film Flash Gordon? But I love the joy in this card, and quite often with the Four of Wands on the RWS, it's so far back all that. It's almost, and I've said before that it's almost like a stage set that's going on there, like an empty set with a background. But here, there's a real sense of celebration and triumph. You know, it has got that finale of a film or something about it, and the joy in there is just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, you just reminded me of that hilarious line in Flash Gordon. You know,
all of them are hilarious. But yeah, go on.
Max von Sydow being the camp. No, it's not Max von Sydow. It's what's his name, Peter Wingard, isn't it? When he's playing Ming's sidekick, and he waves. Says, "Bring in the Emperor's concubine."
Do you know what? I only found out recently that what's his name who played Flash Gordon was dubbed all the way through it.
Yes, I didn't realise.
Yeah, I thought that was his voice, but they employed him for his looks, obviously.
And not his voice.
But not his voice. I wonder what his voice was like. Can you imagine if it was like really high or something?
The reason I found out, because I bought it on DVD about a year ago, because I thought I want, I need this. It's like part of my childhood. And it's because it's in the extras. They're interviewing him. And of course, he's quite bitter about it because, of course, he basically, let's just say that relations with the production team and the producer were not good. And I think they deteriorated. And that was kind of the final icing on the cake. It's like, your voice is great. We're going to dub you, you know.
We only want you for your pecs. That's basically what
Oh, he was.
And actually, when you go back and you watch it, you can kind of see that it's dubbed, because I never realised, and I've watched the film so many times, it never dawned on me. It's like, it's a wonderful film.
Cal has just asked which one is Ming the Merciless. I'm just thinking, have we got a portrait of Ming in this deck? I think it would have to be the Magician, wouldn't it?
It would have to be the Magician,
definitely. You know,
he would have some outlandish costume like that. Yes, it would be Ming the Merciless.
Robin's quite rightly pointed out a certain thing on the Lover's card.
Yeah.
More need be said.
Well, it's not King of Cups, though. Let's just put it that way, because it's colder in Poland, isn't it? They're colder winters. But actually, no, I actually really like the Lover's card. And actually, again, it's quite refreshing to, they're not shirking from it.
No. And it is just...
I wonder if that's got any influence to our Morgan Greer, because we often talk about the bearded Adam in the Morgan Greer.
Would wonder whether he knew the Morgan Greer when he illustrated this, wouldn't you? Because it does.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that, but yeah, possibly. I mean, I think probably yes, because I mean, when I did my first deck, which I mean never got published, but it was my first. I did a lot of research. It was basically an excuse for carte blanche to go out and buy as many tarot decks as you can afford. But it did. It was kind of it was a really important part of the process, because prior to that, I had a small range of decks that I knew and loved and that I felt comfortable with. But actually, I realized that if I was going to design a deck, that there was so much more out there. And actually, every time I discovered a new deck and got another artist's perspective. It's not sometimes it worked its way in there directly, and I kind of paid direct homage. I mean, that's definitely the case in the Light Tarot, which we've already discussed, because I've very, very deliberately paid tribute to several cards from the Sheridan Douglas in there. But the other thing I found was that you just, the more you saw other people's really clever perspectives on individual cards, it encouraged you to think out of the box. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, a deck of this caliber, you think this guy knows his stuff. And I think, we'll probably find there are little hints and nods to classic decks in here. And also, there's a rich tradition of Polish tarot publishing.
Oh, God,
over here. Beautiful decks. There's probably a lot of references and nods in here that we won't understand, because they're nods to decks that have just never been published.
Yeah, that's right. We shouldn't just think, it's a one-off. There's fantastic versions. I can't wait to go back to Poland and try and find a few more.
Do you know, Jared's just put here, we were talking about the Lovers card. Oh, and Flash Gordon, we only want you for your pecs. But I just love this, because Calla has just the best riposte possible. Tiny hands.
Do we, Calla? Do we want him for his tiny hands? Do we? I don't like the tiny hands. Abnormal.
Oh. How long? We've been rabbiting on for almost 2 hours, haven't we?
We have. Time's gone very fast, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But we could do this, Chris. We have this ability to slow or speed up time quite a lot by just talking.
Yeah. No, roughly translated. Once you and I get in a room together, we just
God, could you imagine if the two of us were stuck in a lift with somebody who hated tarot cards, and we were stuck in there for like 5 hours? That poor person would be like climbing out the lift with, can you just stop them two talking?
No. We've got to do another one soon, haven't we, darling?
Well, let's do one every few. When we've got time, because we're both busy people. But it'd be really nice to do this as a sort of a regular evening slot. But every few weeks or perhaps months or whatever.
Do you know what we should do? We should pick
eat more cake.
Eat more cake. Yeah, I've still got cake left. We should pick a single card out the deck, and we'll just focus on that one card, but from different decks. That would be good fun, wouldn't it?
Well, that could be good.
That would be really good fun. Yeah.
Oh, I like the idea of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll make that our next one. We'll
78 broadcasts. No, that would be really good to just kind of pick a few decks and go, yeah, we're going to go with this one. So
yeah, brilliant.
Plus, we've got loads of other bits to do. I want to talk about Marchetti as well, because we've both got loads of Marchetti decks, haven't we?
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched on Marseille, really.
No, we haven't.
Or Thoth.
Yeah.
All of that. Oh, we've got years worth of material here.
Haven't we? Well, actually, I'll tell you what. Let's do our Ciro Marchetti one next, because we both have been hugely influenced by him.
Yeah.
So
it'd be interesting to get people's opinions on that one, because there's a lot out there. Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
Invite guests, says Gerald. Yes.
Oh, yes. Gerald, you're already invited, love. How does that sound? Because that would make a really good discussion, wouldn't it? With a number of guests, because I think so many of us have been influenced by his decks, and certainly for me, when I was starting out, it was that infuriating gold standard that I would never reach, because it's like every time I upped my game and improved my Photoshop skills, his work just carried on getting better and better, and the gap between what I was doing and what he was doing was always like this wide.
Increasing.
And he's a sweetie, because he actually was really supportive of me in the early days when I was first creating my first deck, and was just very generous with with hints and tips with regards to Photoshop and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's.
Does he ever do live chats or interviews.
I don't know whether he does.
You need to get your little black book out and give him a phone call.
I think, yeah. I wonder if we could talk him into it. Could he survive us, do you think?
I might just be a bit quiet for that one. I would just be a bit like that.
You quiet?
I would put my leggings on for him though, because he does like, he does like his kind of tights and leggings and.
Well, if you haven't got Marchetti leggings, have you? You have. What's on them?
Moon phases.
Really?
Mm.
Darling. I want to see them when we've come off broadcast.
At the after party, everyone.
Gerald's attention now.
Yes, Gerald's got Megan. We've done this. We once made the violent claim that if you haven't got Meggins, then you're not a proper tarot reader.
I'm not complete, darling. I don't have a
It's a sweeping statement.
Fran's just put, isn't that's lovely? It's been fab. Thanks, Fran. That's
lovely, Fran.
Really thrilled you've enjoyed it, because it's actually just, quite frankly, it's just a joy seeing you all here, and it's just it's a bit of a fraud, this, isn't it? Because we're having more fun than they are, It's...
Well, it's cheaper than like having to go out to a restaurant and talking about it over, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got a confession to make. I didn't even have to buy the cake; it was donated. It's disgraceful, isn't it?
Well, perhaps next time we could decide what cake we're going to have, and people can go and buy the cake, give them plenty of warning, or make the cake so we could all enjoy a nice banana loaf. Or
are you going to be showing me up and actually doing home baking? No, that's all right. I follow my mother's traditional recipe. She buys it from Tesco's as well, Absolutely.
Well, why would you? Yeah, but anyone that can bake is brilliant, I have to say. But I would it's never.
My grandmother would be immensely disappointed with me, because she was the best traditional cook and baker. The chocolate cake was legendary, so much so she guarded it jealously, and she took the recipe to her grave. She wouldn't tell anyone, She'd learnt the recipe while she was in service in her 20s before she got married, and she would not give anyone the recipe. My auntie's got what she thinks is the nearest thing, but even she's not sure, because she kind of had to my auntie was a trained confectioner. She tried reconstructing the recipe and didn't quite get it right.
You need to go and see a psychic, see if you can connect.
Yeah, could do, actually.
No, she's still not handing it over.
Knowing my nan, if I tried to reach my nan on the other side and ask her for the recipe, she'd just tell me to bugger off. I took that secret to the grave. You're not having it.
You're not having it. Once in a lifetime.
I think we need to draw it. We need to draw proceedings to a close, don't we, darling?
Now, do you know what you need to press to turn this off? That's the question.
There is a big red button, top right-hand corner of the screen, that says "End Broadcast."
Now, I think you might need to press it twice and wait, and then we have to do a knowing pose like that while we wait for it to go.
No, if you want lessons in that, watch Dateline London on BBC News, because they're really fabulous at faking that, because the music starts up but keeps the camera on the studio. So they're all pretending to have a friendly conversation, whereas what they're all saying is, "Are we up air yet?"
It's been lovely, Chris. Thank you. And everyone in here, it's been so nice to see lots of friends and lots of people I don't know, and it's been great to spend time with everybody. So,
darlings, I mean, it's been a joy, Richie. Should
we do a plug though? Should we do a quick plug?
Yes. And
should we do it all again tomorrow? Shall we do it all again tomorrow at 7:30?
Do it all again tomorrow
because we're going to. Because Gerald from Tarot Stash, I forgot what his title was. Gerald, I nearly called him Long Stash, which is something totally different. Gerald from Tarot Stash and you will be joining me on my channel.
Yes.
Hopefully.
As to the best of my knowledge at the moment, I will be. So, yeah.
I was just going to have a kind of chat. It's called Fiddling and Dabbling. That's what we're going to be doing. Fiddling and dabbling. Are you a fiddler or a dabbler? Don't answer that. Give us the answer tomorrow. 7:30 on my channel.
I will just deflect and just say that Callum has just given us a little bit of Python-esque humour, which didn't I evade that question nicely? I'm both a fiddler and a dabbler, darling.
Are you? Well, we'll find out more tomorrow about that one.
and next Tuesday.
Tuesday. What is occur? Oh yes.
What is
I do the plug again
on Gerald's Tarot Stash channel?
That's what it's called, Tarot Stash.
A quantum tarot casual. So there is going to be me, Gerald, you, and
Chris from Elemental Cartomancy, and Nancy from, I can't remember Nancy's channel, but it will all be posted up there, hopefully.
So I will post details in the community section on my channel. I'll also post on Instagram and Facebook for anyone who follows there. But yeah, we'll be specifically talking about the quantum tarot and discussing some of the cards, and I can give you some of the insight into the process of how it was created. So
that's good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So there we go. Tarot Stash.
Thank you then. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, darling. And thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight. It's just been an absolute joy. And hopefully I think you've enjoyed it as much as we have. It seems like you have. So yeah, it's just been lovely to see you all with us, and we will chat soon. And I'm now going to do what Richie says, and I'm going to hit the red button twice.
Let me get ready to pose.
I shall see you all soon. Take care.